Okay, let's talk about rest. When we hear that word, we usually think of what we do when we're just completely exhausted, right? Putting our feet up after a ridiculously long day. But what if I told you that's not the real point of rest at all? We're about to dive into a completely different way of thinking about rest, one that's rooted deep in theology. And honestly, it's a concept that might just change the way you look at your entire life. So let's just start with the most basic question. Why do we actually need to rest? I mean, the immediate answer for most of us is probably, well, because I'm tired, or I need to recharge my batteries. And yeah, that's obviously true. But what if that's just scratching the surface of a much bigger, much more profound picture? And this right here, this is the core of the whole shift. On the left, you've got our normal experience. We see rest as recovery. It's something we need when we're drained. It's a reaction. But the theological view, it completely flips the script. It sees rest as completion. It's not a reaction to being tired. It's a declaration that the work is finished, it's whole, it's good. It's a sign of fulfillment. Now, to really get this, we have to go way back to the very beginning. So this first section is all about the divine reason for rest, laid out right there in Genesis. And here's the crucial point. It has absolutely nothing to do with being tired. I mean, check out this verse from Isaiah. It's fascinating because it just completely dismantles the idea that God rests for the same reasons we do. It says the everlasting God. He doesn't get faint, he's never weary. So that begs a huge question, right? If he wasn't tired, then why in the world did he rest on the seventh day? And the answer is just so powerful. God's rest isn't about recovery, it's about satisfaction. The Hebrew idea here is that God's work of creation had reached its ultimate fullness. Everything was complete, it was in harmony, it was exactly as it was meant to be. So for God, rest is the joyful declaration that the work is perfect. And here, we see this incredible pattern emerge that echoes through the entire biblical story. Just look at the language. In Genesis, God ended his work, and then he rested. Now, fast forward thousands of years, and you have Jesus on the cross declaring, "It is finished." The work of redemption is done. You see, in both creation and redemption, rest is the seal that's placed on a finished, perfect work. It's an amazing parallel. Now, this idea, it builds in a really interesting way. Let's zoom in on a subtle but totally profound detail about that seventh day of creation, a detail that honestly changes everything. Okay, so if you look at the creation week, you see this really clear pattern, right? Every single day from 1 through 6 is marked by the phrase, "and there was evening, and there was morning." Each day has a defined end. But then you get to the seventh day, and the phrase is just gone. This isn't an oversight. The silence is intentional. It's signaling that God's rest wasn't just a 24-hour break. It's an open-ended, eternal reality that was never meant to stop. Now just stop and think about the implications of that for a second. Adam was created on the sixth day. You know what that means? His very first full day of existence was the seventh day, a day of rest. Humanity's story doesn't begin with toil and labor. It begins in a state of complete rest. This completely demolishes our cultural idea that you have to earn your rest at the end of a long, hard week. The original model is that rest is the starting point, the very atmosphere we were made to breathe. So if rest is our starting point, what does that mean for the whole idea of the Sabbath? We tend to see it as a day of rules and thou shalt nots, but when you reframe it through this lens, you realize it's actually all about freedom. So what is the Sabbath really? It's so much more than just a rule about not working. At its very heart, the Sabbath is a weekly declaration of trust. It's a conscious decision to say, you know what? The world will not fall apart if I stop. It's an admission that our lives, and the whole universe for that matter, are sustained by God's grace, not by our own frantic hustling. To rest is to confess, I depend on Him. And what's so fascinating is that the Bible gives two different reasons for the Sabbath. In Exodus, it's connected back to God's rest in creation, making it this universal principle baked into the cosmos. But in Deuteronomy, it's tied to Israel's freedom from slavery in Egypt. And that connection is huge. Why? Because, think about it, slaves can't choose to rest. The ability to just stop working is the ultimate sign of a free person. And this, right here, is where the entire idea of rest takes a major turn. It stops being about a specific day on the calendar or something that you do, and it becomes about someone that you know. You can actually trace this whole progression. Rest starts as a universal rhythm, just built into creation itself. Then, for the nation of Israel, it becomes this specific covenant sign. But the final destination, the ultimate fulfillment, isn't a day of the week. It's a person. Jesus makes this shift crystal clear with this direct invitation. He doesn't say, hey, you need to follow the Sabbath rules better. He says, come to me, and I will give you rest. He presents himself as the source, the very embodiment of the deep soul rest humanity has been searching for since that very first seventh day. And this brings the whole idea full circle. Just like God rested when his work of creation was finished and perfect, we find our true spiritual rest when we stop trying to earn our way to God and instead trust in Christ's finished work on the cross. See, it's not a rest that we achieve by our effort, it's a rest we enter by faith. Okay, so what does all this mean for us today in our hyper-busy, often anxious lives? Well, this final part brings it all home, showing how this kind of deep theological rest actually becomes a form of visible faith. This slide really lays out the contrast between two fundamentally different ways of living. A life of striving is fueled by fear and anxiety. Your identity is all tied up in your performance, so you're always racing against the clock. But a life of rest, it operates from a place of deep trust in God's control. It understands that your identity is a gift, not something you have to achieve. It doesn't race against time, it inhabits it. This isn't about ignoring reality, it's about aligning with a deeper reality. So what does this look like, practically speaking? Well, it boils down to this powerful idea. True rest is obedience without anxiety. It doesn't mean we become lazy or stop working hard. Not at all. It means we work faithfully, we do the things we're called to do, but we release the outcomes. We detach our sense of well-being from the results, and we trust them to a sovereign God. And you know, this famous verse just perfectly captures that posture. The call to be still isn't a call to do nothing. The Hebrew there really means cease striving. It's an active decision to stop the frantic hustle, to stop trying to control everything, and to actively recognize who is really in charge. It's the soul's protest against fear. So we'll end with this question for you to really think about. Based on everything we've just seen, are you living for rest, chasing it like it's a prize you have to earn at the end of an exhausting week? Or are you learning how to live from a place of rest, rooted and secure in the finished work of God, which is the very atmosphere you were created for in the first place?